Hi guys, welcome to episode 1 of Project Joy. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kory and Project Joy is all about self-care and self-love. So because this is episode 1 today, I wanted to just take a minute and do a couple of housekeeping items. Number 1 being, I know that I introed this series a while back and then I kind of dropped off of YouTube and didn't follow through with this series. I'm going to tell you the story behind that and talk about some of my fears that I had around doing YouTube and just in taking time for my own creative projects in general in a video that I'll post at the same time as this one that's going to be more of like a chit chat catch up with me vlog. So if vlogs aren't really your style, you can just stay tuned in here for this video. We're going to do some more structured content. But if you do want to watch that catch up with me video, like I said, I'll post it at the same time as this one. But today, I really want to focus on Project Joy itself because this is episode 1. So to kind of give you the precursor story to Project Joy, about a year ago now, I was in a really kind of difficult place in my life and I started filming YouTube videos. I got really inspired by Marissa Lace. She's here on YouTube and she did a video series called Year of You. So that video series inspired me to start my own YouTube series, and that series was called Eat, Pray, Love, after Elizabeth Gilbert's book Eat, Pray, Love. That was a book that really changed my life because it kind of opened my eyes to the concept that it's important to take care of yourself, not only physically, but spiritually and emotionally as well. So that was kind of the concept behind that initial series, but I wanted to change the name and I wanted to kind of change up the format of the series a little bit because the more that I started to focus on self-care and self-love, the more important I found it to be that those things were considered holistically, because I think that you can't just take care of yourself physically or emotionally or spiritually and feel, at least I can't feel, truly happy in life. I really need all 3 of those things to be taken care of through my self-love and self-care practices in order to feel as happy as I possibly can. So that's where Project Joy comes in. This series is going to be all about self-love and self-care, and some of that is going to be personal stories that I'll tell about the lessons that I've learned about these things over the past couple of years. I think that I felt like the transition from college into the kind of real world felt really difficult to me because there wasn't really like a clear moment where there was a handoff between my parents taking care of me and my family taking care of me versus when it was really time for me to step up and take care of myself. So I think that I've kind of had some wake up moments over the past couple of years about how important it is to take care of yourself and how to take care of myself as well as I can. So some of this will be kind of like a story time video. Some of this will be videos that are more like practical application ideas on things that you can do every day for self-love and self-care. And then some of it will be more kind of talking about the way that these topics are being talked about in the media and the way that they're being talked about across social media, and just kind of having like more of a discussion on the general ideas of self-love and self-care. So for today's episode, because this is the first one, I wanted to talk about the definitions of self-love and self-care, because I think before we dive into talking about some of the details of these topics, it's important to know how we're talking about them and how I define self-love and self-care. And I would love to hear how you guys define these things as well. But self-love and self-care are specifically connected to one another, I think, because in my mind, self-love is kind of a state of being and a practice of thinking. It's a way of thinking more positively about yourself. And then self-care are the actual actions that you take in order to take good care of your mind, your body, and your spirit. So, for one of my favorite examples is that sometimes, like, I have acne-prone skin, so I'll have days where I look in the mirror and I just do not feel confident about my skin, and it's really easy to fall into the pattern of thinking, like, oh my god, I'm so ugly, like, I look like I'm this like pimply teenager, and like just like get really really down on myself and think that I just don't look good, and that can easily ruin my entire day. So an example of how self-love and self-care come into play together in those moments is that, number one, self-love is obviously thinking more positively about myself than telling myself I'm ugly just because I'm having a bad skin day. Everybody has bad skin days. So I try to think through and kind of think about the fact that when I see my friends, I would never think that their skin is ugly because I'm not looking at them just as like I'm not just looking at their skin, right? Like I'm also thinking about the fact that I love that person for more reasons than just how they look, and I should think that way about myself as well. So if I'm having a bad skin day, I try to just chalk it up to the fact that like, yep, I'm having a bad skin day, but I am more than just my skin. There's more to what makes me beautiful than just what's on my face. And then the self care that comes in after that is that I'll do something nice for myself. Like I'll spend an extra few minutes on my eye makeup so that I feel really confident about my face because I feel like my eyes are highlighted, or I'll wear an outfit that makes me feel really confident. And so that way I still have that confidence. I'm still kind of taking care of my, I guess that would be more of like an emotional self-care item, is just to kind of give myself that confidence for the day. So again, the thought has to kind of come before the care items, I think. And that's kind of just my favorite example of like an everyday self-love and self-care implementation, is just thinking more positively than calling yourself ugly, and then also doing something that makes you feel confident. But um and I think like a lot of times people can kind of get caught up in the idea of self-care and self-love and think that in order to have a self-care and self-love practice, you have to like meditate and do yoga every day and like only drink green juice and like wear yoga pants in every Instagram photo. And that's not what it's about at all. I think that it is really easy to get caught up in those concepts that way because that's how they're often portrayed in the media sometimes. But really, self-love and self-care to me are as simple as just finding healthy and kind ways to get yourself through difficult moments in the day, and then also doing nice things for yourself because you deserve it, and nobody knows how to take care of you better than you do because you're you. So that kind of brings up the point that I think that self-love and self-care are really hard terms to define because they're all about yourself, right? So things that make me feel really confident could make somebody else not feel confident. For example, I just talked about how I like to spend an extra few minutes on my eye makeup when I'm not feeling confident about my skin. But for some people, maybe you don't like wearing makeup. Like maybe makeup makes your face feel really sticky, and maybe you just don't feel as confident as you do when you're not wearing makeup. And then so your self-care practice would be to have a no makeup day and to have those positive affirmations about yourself, to let yourself know that it's okay to not wear makeup. So those, like the two opposite actions, can both be self-care for two different people, right? So I think that that's why like I'm really excited that people are starting to talk about self-care and self-love in the media more and across social media. But it worries me a little bit because I don't want people to get to a point where they feel overwhelmed by the concepts and they feel like they have to be this green juice drinking, yogi, amazing Instagram model in order to have self-love for themselves, because that's really not what it's about. It's so individualistic, and I think it's important to kind of keep that at the heart of what we're talking about. So just know that as we're going through this series, when I'm talking about self-love and self-care practices, it's really that I want to share things that have worked for me with all of you, and I would love to hear your guys' variations on those things, or maybe they inspire you to try the opposite and have a no makeup day instead of having a special eye makeup day. I think that's really what it's all about, and I love hearing people's stories of what they do for self-care and self-love. Like a great example is I have a friend who loves to go out to parties, and she loves doing like huge music festivals, and she loves going to raves, and she will always tell me stories about how like she'll start to kind of feel herself like dragging a little bit And so then she'll make a decision to purchase a music festival ticket. She'll clear out her schedule so she can go to the festival. She like plans all these really cute outfits and like paints her face and like does all this stuff and just like goes all out at these festivals. And I can always tell when she comes back that she's just rejuvenated and happy, and just she just feels really, really fulfilled by doing those things. Going to a giant music festival sounds like my worst nightmare, because for me, when I start to feel like I'm kind of dragging and like struggling with dealing with people, I want to be by myself in my bed with a really good book, and I want to read for like 2 hours and go to bed early. Like, that's my self-care. So it's a great example of like, my friend and I always laugh about the fact that like what feels so amazing to her makes me anxious just to think about it, right? But for her, she would never want to spend a weekend night just laying in bed reading a book, because that sounds boring to her. So I think that part of having your own self-care and your own self-love is just developing the ability to recognize that you taking care of yourself is not always going to look like that to other people. Sometimes I get this from my friends all the time. They think that I'm depressed when I take time to spend time by myself in my house, and I'm really not. And I understand that that is coming from a place of them wanting to make sure that I feel invited and included to things, which I love. But for a lot of my friends, they're really big extroverts, so taking care of themselves feels like going out a lot. And for me, that's not the case. While I like going out with people and connecting with them, I need my time to just be in the house and have quiet time. So those are just some examples of why like it's so hard to define self-care and self-love, because they're so different for different people. So, to cover this a little bit more deeply, one of my concerns is the fact that I see a lot of brands today using the terms self-care and self-love, or implying them through terms like treat yourself and you deserve it and like these kinds of things. And while this isn't new to the advertising space, I think that the similarity in the language between self-love and self-care and the language of, treat yourself, take care of yourself, you deserve it, etc., are starting to kind of converge a little bit. And that worries me, because I don't want people to start to feel like they have to buy things in order to create these feelings of self-care or these feelings of self-love, or, whatever it might be for you. Like, I think that on one hand, it's awesome if you love a really great face mask and like a hot bubble bath with some really yummy bath bombs, and that's your definition of self-care, then that's awesome. But I don't want it to get to a point where people feel like because they don't buy a certain face mask or they don't buy a certain bathroom product, that they're not taking care of themselves and that they're not doing a good job of self-care, because like maybe you don't like baths, or maybe you don't like face masks. Like maybe those things are things that you choose to not prioritize because you're doing something else for yourself, and I think that is awesome. So that's one of the things that I really want to like focus on and keep in mind as we go through this series, is the idea that it's not about the products that you're using in order to create self-care. And I think while there are some products out there on the market, including like apps for meditation or journaling and things like that that can be helpful to your self-love journey, it's not about the products that you buy in order to create these positive things in your life. So that was part of my inspiration for this series as well. Was I also feel like on YouTube I have some favorite YouTubers who talk a lot about self-care and self-love and things like that, and they do partner with brands, and they're usually clear about the fact that they're partnering with those brands. But sometimes it starts to feel to me like, I don't know, like I'm being pushed towards buying a certain product just because I want to practice better self-love and self-care, and I don't like that feeling, because I think that this should be something that everyone can do regardless of your budget or regardless of the amount of money you have to spend specifically on yourself, etc. So That, in summary, are my definitions. Those are my definitions of self care and self love. So, again, self love is the series of thoughts and the practice of thinking you have about yourself. And then self care are the actions that you use to back up those positive affirmations about yourself. So, in future episodes, we'll go more in depth into things that you can do to create your own self love practices, to create your own self care, and we'll talk more about this topic of self love and self care. But again, for today, I'm going to sign off. But I'd love to hear from you guys. If you guys have books or podcasts or ideas that you want to talk about on this series, please let me know. I'd love to do some book reviews and some discussions on the way that these terms are being used out there in the world, in addition to just talking about my own personal experience with them. So please let me know what your experience has been with self love and self care, and I look forward to seeing you next week.